Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 31st day of October, 2018. Well, blessed Samhain. If you're pagan, if you're a witch, happy Halloween. If you're not, or if that's what you prefer to call it, however you celebrate today. Today is my favorite day of the year, and always has been. I tend to leave up Halloween decorations all year long. So always have. Anyway, I got back from our walk this morning, and walking down the driveway, I decided to go ahead and gather my all my dead flowers and things and grasses for my altar for today, and to honor the dead, those who have passed. I have Queen Anne's lace. There's some, I think, coreopsis. There's some witchgrass. There's let's see, turn this around. There's some echinacea. There's some daisy. Oh, and in the middle there's some mullein, which is known as a witch's taper. So I thought that would be nice to put in the center of it, surrounded by some witchgrass. Anyway, we'll put that over there on the altar. Excuse me. People are burning their wood stoves now, and the worst, though, I don't know if you guys have experienced this where you live, but people have pellet stoves, and I don't know what they do to the pellets, but they flavor them or something. They make them smell like one thing or another. And the problem is that all that goes into the air, and I breathe it, and it affects me. So this is not, ever since the pellet stove is a nice idea. I mean, it really is. I guess they're really warm and everything, but I don't know. I have a heat pump. That's what I use. I have a wood stove, but it leaks, so we stopped using it years ago. So I don't know. We all do what we have to do, don't we? Well, we'll shuffle a little bit. Maybe I should put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing today. For those of us visually challenged, I do fine until I have to read something, and then I've got to have my glasses on. Unless the print is really, 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 really big. Well, my husband made some blackberry infused vodka. He says, well, honey, it's for tincturing purposes, or ritual. Yeah, right. So it should be done here in a couple of weeks. So it's not ready for today or anything. But he thought that'd be the fun thing to do. We have blackberries that were here when we bought the place back in 1981. And, we use them and we freeze them. And now he's decided he wants to make a blackberry liqueur or something, which is nice. So he says, can I have some of your tincturing vodka? I'm like, well, how much do you need? Because I have medicines to make. Just a cup and a half. Okay. So let's count 13 and see what we have for today. Oh, I didn't talk about the numerology. So, well, 3 and 1 is 4, and then add to the 1 for the 10. That's 5. So we have change, certainly. And then 2018, of course, is 11. So we have some change today in this year of illumination. And but let's see what the cards have to say. We'll see if we get any, water element, or maybe some 5s come up or something. So, or maybe 4 for the day. As many of you know who have been here before, you know that I've not been using the year in the numerology. because it's because 2018 adds up to 11, and that's a master number for illumination. So I've been leaving that alone, and I've just been using the month and the day to come up with the actual numerology for the day. And sometimes if the like we had on the 11th, or if the day actually adds up to 11, then I just have an 11 and 11, and then whatever, new beginnings on the month. Well, here we're going to draw another card too, because this is the King of Pentacles. We've been getting a lot of these, we're getting a lot of Pentacles in these readings. And what that's telling me is we really have some concerns over our foundation. Now, I like the King of Pentacles because he just seems to be very benevolent. He's very concerned about how he protects his legacy and how he protects his kingdom, his family. You can see that he just seems to be very compassionate, and he's not all caught up in his own stuff. But and he seems to be looking toward the future a little bit. So it does show that he's concerned, about, are we going to have enough? Are we going in the right direction? Are we preserving everyone's dignity? Are we going to have a calm and loving community? These are the kinds of things that he's concerned about, because if you have chaos, it makes it a whole lot harder to be the king. But let's see whenever we pull a court card, I like to do another one, simply because the court cards are interesting. They can mean, in this case, an authority figure, a man, because it's a king, or it could mean the qualities of this individual. So without having something else for it to interact with, we don't get as clear a picture. So let's count again 13 and see what we come up with. Oh, okay, so we have the Two of Swords. So he looks like he's thinking, right? So maybe he needs to make a decision. He needs to do it dispassionately. There's choppy water behind her. She's got a blindfold on. She's ignoring the chaos. She's making a choice or a decision, coming to balance. We're talking about balance, polarity. But here, particularly on this day where we're, maybe, well, some of us anyway, some of us think about candy, but some of us think about or believe that the veil is thinnest at this time, and also again in the spring, where we can access those who have passed on before us through the veil into other realities, to remember who they were and what they taught us, and to allow those memories to fill us, to fill our hearts, to know that there's something greater than just the individual in life, that there's a connectedness to all things. We can, laugh and have Halloween parties and spend time with our children, and it's a fun night. Everybody gets dressed up and they go out trick-or-treating, and we do what we do. But the idea is about community and coming together in joy. And holidays are essentially about that, aren't they? Coming together in joy. But here, we need to evidently make that decision to do that, to understand that there's a greater presence at work. There's a greater thing than just what's happening in my house or in your house or in his house or her house, that there's a greater world out there that needs our attention and needs our loving care and needs to know that we're aware of them. So it isn't just those that have passed on through the veil, it's those that we're not really, physically connected to, those that we don't know that may be in need. So let's see what the rune has to say, though, because I feel like we still need another direction. 2 is about balance and polarity. And so maybe with this being a day of change, maybe what the king is thinking about is how can we bring things back into order? Things don't grow well in chaos, do they? Well, here we have Alyi's. Now, Alyi's, I don't remember the number on Alyi's. I always forget this. Well, it's the 15th rune of the Elder Futhark. There we go. Don't mean to make anyone dizzy. Moving it around. But this resembles an antler. This is a protection rune. It's a higher self rune. You see the three tips. It's air, fire, and water. It's basically the rune of activated higher consciousness, I believe. Let me double check to be sure. I wear this as a protection amulet. It basically protects us from harmful forces. It represents the elk and safety and protection. Yeah, it represents the Bifrost Bridge. When we talk about the Bifrost Bridge, what we're really talking about is that rainbow body that we, or the portal that we, access higher consciousness through. We always like to, bring it down to physical terms, but in truth, what that is basically a channel of energy that we access, part of our light body, if you will. And in fact, she sort of represents it, doesn't she? So she's going within, accessing higher consciousness. If her head was just a little bit, or the swords are just a little bit lower, then what you would have is Alyi's. So it's almost like a decision has to be made in order to preserve the higher good, to preserve the kingdom, to preserve the unified presence. Something has to change. A decision has to be made. A balance and polarity has to be found. Right now, it seems like there's toxic masculinity run amok. And whether it's expressed by men or women, it doesn't matter. It's being expressed by both. So maybe instead of saying toxic masculinity, maybe we just have way too much Mars energy and it's just way too out of control. And we can't seem to allow compassion or the ability to maybe see the bigger picture and to see how our actions affect others. And we don't want to accept responsibility for that either. If we look at this from simply the standpoint of a king or someone in authority, maybe the King of Pentacles hoards if he's ill-dignified. Maybe if he's not the compassionate, benevolent king that we're talking about today. Maybe this authority figure is someone who is all about himself. Now, I don't really see the King of Pentacles that way, but if you have an entire picture of someone, you're going to have positive and negative within that individual. And so perhaps in this case, he is too much about himself. And he can't see, his back is to the kingdom, see? He's not really paying attention to it. It's really more about that pentacle that's in front of him. So that may be another way to interpret this thing. Instead of, he's looking out for the kingdom, instead of, looking into the future to help preserve the kingdom, maybe he's turned his back on the kingdom. And so now we all have to come to a decision, you know, and it needs to be one that is based on how do we best protect our world? How do we protect our lives? How do we protect our country? How do we protect our cities, you know, our communities? How do we protect our family, our home? Well, the best way to do it is by letting spirit inform. And with all yeast, what this is saying is, you know what? You better be activating that higher consciousness here. Pull that in, bring that in, let that inform the decisions that you make here. Because if that's what this is, and it's feeling kind of like that's what this is now, that this is a, you know, a warning to say, now hold on a minute. He's taken his eye off the ball. It's on his own fortune. And now the decision needs to be made, which, you know, we have a vote coming up on Tuesday. So you have to say, maybe, you know, there's something to that. And maybe it's about, you know, less about, you know, something happening specifically, although this is specific in our lives, isn't it? Because whatever happens on that level affects the rest of us. So it would seem to me maybe that's what this is. You know, let me see if I can see a little bit more here. I mean, I always hate to interpret the King of Pentacles in anything other than a positive way. But in truth, instead of standing out in front of the kingdom, it could simply mean that he's turned his back on the kingdom. And the kingdom is there for his purpose only, not, you know, for any kind of compassion or benevolence toward the kingdom or anything. That's interesting. But all ye's, I've this one has always resonated with me. Hagalaz does as well. But the thing about this is that it shows how energy comes together into form. And you can look at this in two different ways. You can either see this as energy coming down into form, or us reaching up into form or into spirit and drawing down Awen. You know, you have the 3 points of Awen. What did I do with one of those I have? Well, I changed where I put my runes, my altar tile runes, my bind runes. What did I do with them? Well, in any event, you see if I have one in here. The symbol for Awen is you've got 3 dots above and then 3 lines that come down from them. So you've got a dot, 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 and then lines that come down. And that's known as Awen, or enlightenment, or, you know, spirit informing is how I've always viewed it. It's a little more complicated than that. It's a Druidic expression, Awen. And but basically it's about alignment with our own source presence. And it's about having that imbue you at every given moment that you're alive, you know, to never forget that you are that you're not these bodies, that you don't have to remain in conflict with the polarity, you know, that we can all remember that we're spirit inhabiting a body and start acting like it, basically. And Alyes is probably, well, I think it's probably the best example in the Elder Futhark of that energy coming into form and then also reaching up into that energy. So I think for today, given that this is such a blessed day, you know, let's align in that source presence. Let's align in that energy, you know, that Bifrost energy, that rainbow body energy, and allow all of who we are to inform this moment in our lives, you know, to have this dispassionate viewpoint where we look, you know, I hate to use the word critically, but look critically at what is going on objectively, neutrally, taking an observer stance and not being involved in the chatter, and just sit back and listen to what's being really said and think about If it doesn't feel right, well, think about who benefits. So start looking critically at and using reason. You know, swords is about reason. It's about our intellectual presence in the world. Pentacles is about our physical presence in the world. But what it's saying is that we need to use dispassion and a neutral, objective view of things to make our decisions. And if we think that something's going on here that is not best serving us, then allow our inner knowing to inform. You know, higher self isn't going to steer you wrong. It just isn't. And if things feel, you know, not right, then maybe you're not listening to what higher self is trying to say to you. If it's a struggle to believe what you believe, higher self is telling you you're not supposed to be believing that. If you begin in a place of love and unity with all, begin there and then see from there. So, anyway, something to think about. Eat lots of candy. Do that for me because candy gives me a headache. Anyhow, I don't think I have any in the house. I don't think. No, I don't have any candy in the house. So that's perfect because it gives, I don't know, the corn syrup stuff, it just gives me a bad headache. So anyway, um, thank you so much for stopping by and enjoy the holiday. Be kind to one another, be kind to yourself. Um, go check out my blog at imsteppingaside.com. Lots of fun things there. I post this over there on the side panel to the left of everything I write. Um, Click subscribe if you like. I'd love you to do that. If you've been here before, hi. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Uh, I like to do these things, so I do them 4 days a week. And so today's what, Wednesday? I'll be back tomorrow. And again, have a lovely, lovely, blessed Samhain and a lovely, lovely Halloween. Blessed be.